Hello, and welcome to Around the Political World with John Rothman. I am your host, John Rothman. If you're a fan of the show, make sure to hit the follow button on the top right of Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you are listening at this very moment. When you hit follow, leave a review or share an episode with a friend. It helps other people discover the show, keeps us going, as I like to point out each and every day, it expands our base. Fear. I want to talk about fear. I want to talk about fear internationally. I want to talk about fear domestically. Because every time I turn on the radio or watch television, fear is the word which immediately comes to mind. Let's begin with the international situation. Iran and Israel continue to go at each other. And the question is, what will the United States do? Will we intervene? Donald Trump, demonstrating the power of the presidency, announced yesterday through his press secretary that within 2 weeks he will decide whether or not America will act in the situation between Iran and Israel. Let's be clear. The United States does play a central role. We already are playing a central role. And the question of whether or not we will become directly involved is simply and purely the call of the President of the United States. There are those in Congress who say no, a president cannot act unilaterally. But quite the contrary is true. Unless Congress says to the president, you can't do something, the president is certainly going to attempt to do it. And even if Congress said no, the president still has the power as commander-in-chief to do what he wants to do. There are real implications here, and let's talk about it for a moment. The first, of course, is whether or not we will use a bomb that has never been used before on a nuclear facility, which we know exists. What are the implications of that action? It's a curious thing. We did not know in 1945 whether the bomb dropped on Hiroshima would work, but we dropped it, and it worked. And along with the bomb that was then dropped on Nagasaki, the war came to an end. Will this bunker buster bomb, this mammoth bomb that has never been used before, have the desired effect? We don't know. But we do know that the Israelis have said whether the United States decides to participate or not, they are going to proceed with whatever action they need to take in order to prevent Iran from having a nuclear capability now or in the future. Make no mistake, the Israelis have set back the Iranian efforts. And now, as we speak to you this morning, a meeting of foreign ministers is taking place in Geneva to try to determine whether or not there can be diplomatic action. It's a real question. Iran doesn't seem to respond very well to diplomatic action, so we're going to have to wait and see how that turns out. In the meantime, the Israelis are determined to pursue their course. Now, the question is, who do you blame? Some have been blaming the Israelis for attempting to drag the United States into war. Quite the contrary. It is Israel who has been the beacon of light that has said to the world, if you don't act now, it may be too late. Can you imagine, Israelis ask, what it would mean if Iran had a nuclear capability? Can you imagine how the balance of power in the world would have shifted? So we have a lot to be worried about. And of course, if in fact this war escalates, what happens in the Strait of Hormuz? What if there is an attempt to close that major shipping artery? We've been through this before, and we understand that 25% of the world's oil, not to mention trade, passes through the Strait of Hormuz, and if those straits were closed, well, the implications would be profound on the world economy. And what about the implications in the Arab and Muslim world? If they have to choose sides, where will they end up? Now, we know that there is a struggle between the Shia and the Sunni. That works to our advantage. We know that most Sunnis are delighted to see Israel taking on Shia Iran. But there are implications. And of course, the question of terror, the the question of the fact that if the United States directly intervenes by dropping this bomb, will terrorists take up the cudgels against the United States? By the way, we're already helping the Israelis. That's already been established. And the president has used the term we, not once, not twice, but several times to describe our relationship with Israel. I point these things out now in anticipation of a weekend that will be filled with drama. And if there is no drama this weekend, there will be in the days and weeks ahead. These are all factors that cause fear on the part of so many. But I want to talk for a moment about another fear. It took place at Dodger Stadium just yesterday. Were there ICE agents there, or were there people from the government representing other agencies in the parking lot at Dodger Stadium? And what does it mean when the federal government can use its power, whether it was ICE or another agency, to intimidate people? Now look, everyone favors strong action to secure America's border. That's a bipartisan issue. Democrats and Republicans both believed that was the case. And those who accuse the Biden administration of open borders have no sense of the fact that, of course, Biden didn't favor open borders, nor do the Democrats favor open borders. It is an accusation full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. The deporter-in-chief was Barack Obama, and I would remind you Joe Biden had a pretty good record on deporting illegals as well. But the real question is, what happens when you go to a baseball game and there are federal agents, and who are they looking for? That is the fear domestically, which we should all be very, very concerned about, because this is not a nation of fear. And when Franklin Roosevelt said the only thing we have to fear is fear itself in his inaugural address on March the 4th, 1933, the simple truth is, for many Americans, there is something to fear. The federal government, led by Donald Trump. These are fearful times with many implications. And what I wanted to do with you this morning was to raise some of those implications in a direct and clear fashion. We must eliminate fear, particularly fear at home. And what happens internationally, we need to be engaged. We need to be involved. And we must understand that Israel today represents a beacon of light in a rather dark world. And at the same time, that what we are dealing with domestically represents a darkness as well. None of us want to believe that we need to be fearful in our own country, in our own homes. Well, those are my thoughts today. I will be back on Monday. I know we will have a lot to talk about, but in the meantime, your homework assignment is follow what's going on. Thanks for tuning into another episode of Around the Political World with John Rothman. I am John Rothman. Make sure to follow along. Let me know your thoughts on the show by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts and sharing an episode with a friend or colleague so we can continue to grow and expand, which, of course, is our goal. You can interact with me on Facebook, LinkedIn. Many of you email me. I'm delighted to hear from you. I like the interaction. If we were on the radio, believe me, we'd have even more. And, of course, to Gogo Zoger, the wonderful producer of this podcast. Thanks, Gogo. Have a great weekend. Gogo and I will be back, along with you, on Monday, right here on Around the Political World with John Rothman. See you then.